Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode 401. My name is Brando. Geez is right, Vicky Hamilton.
Starting off the first one in the 500s, right?
Yeah, 400s, almost
400, 401, yes.
Well, and with me, which we'll see for how long, but the second time is my new co-host, Harrison Rex, strapped to my chest. Let's show the face to Zoom. I know it's not exactly the best thing to have a newborn.
Well, you have to show the onesie too, because it like.
Oh, then I got to take him out of my strap. The sweet child. I'm posting a picture on social media where it says "Sweet Child of Mine." My wife's within an earshot, but I don't know.
Like I said, it gives new meaning to "Sweet Child of Mine,"
doesn't it?
Right. Yeah.
And I figure because I want him to be raised by radio, like I was. And perhaps, like, let's just say we're gonna have a great conversation anyway about your book and your management and a lot of things. There's a new series on Paramount Plus. But if none of those pique a fancy, maybe we'll get a viral moment because he's already crapped on me today. He threw a formula on my wife already today, so we'll see what happens.
What are the little skull things? Is that one of his toys or one of yours?
No, I know it's one of my toys. He has the right dad. He has so many toys. And as he gets older, I already got him. I was in sync because he's starting to grab a little bit. I got him a rattle microphone. So we'll see.
You're totally prepping him.
I know. And watch, he's gonna hate radio. He's gonna, I don't know, but we'll see what happens. So let me just get him locked in here because he's in the phase where his head isn't exactly completely secure yet. He is 5 weeks. 5 weeks old. Yeah. So it's
brand new.
Yeah, fresh, brand new. So anyway, Vicky Hamilton, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for making time. It's crazy because you mentioned, and I mentioned 401 episodes. You were on episode 11, number 11, way back. That was your first appearance, and then episode 147. So thank you for being a three-timer. And you've been so busy. And you know what? I think I want to start with a fan because a lot of people are excited to talk to you again. Yeah, I know you're excited to talk to you. His first words are going to be "Appetite for Dysfunction," the name of your book.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll see.
Not your podcast.
No, then I want him to be catered to the guest, just like I do.
Okay.
So this is from Alan McClay. I love Vicky. That lady doesn't get the credit she deserves. She put up with some shit in those early days. The band would have made it anyhow, but she did everything she could for those boys. You know what, though? I don't know. That's kind of a question I can ask because I saw a reverse comment.
Yes, probably. But, I kept an eye on them because, they could have probably OD'd during that time period if I wasn't watching them so close. But,
so appropriate.
Yeah, they would have definitely musically made it for sure.
Okay. Because I saw another, I can't find it now, but you know what? It's from it's also a very nice comment, but it has a different point of view. This is from Maria on Twitter. She is the helping hand that opened the door for Guns N' Roses. She put them in touch with the right people, the right management. If it wasn't for her, oh no, he couldn't do it. He's upset. He's upset that Vicky got fired from Guns N' Roses all these years later. Oh, are you gonna calm? You gonna calm down? And don't worry, we're gonna edit this out if it gets crazy. A little cry, a little background, I think is okay. Can you calm down yet? Okay, he's okay. Maria said that if it wasn't for her, Guns N' Roses would be just of one of the moderate bands out there of the 47 rock bands out of the 80s. So she feels different, that maybe they would have fell by the wayside if it wasn't for you, but you don't feel that way.
No, I mean, I worked Motley Crue as a management consultant and Poison as a manager and Guns N' Roses as a manager and Faster Pussycat. But, I feel like those bands in particular really knew how to craft a good anthem song, and it's like, there were so many in the hair days that, got record deals even but didn't crack through, I mean, it had a lot to do with their songwriting, they
Oh,
all wrote good songs ultimately.
right on. So obviously I love hearing your perspective. You have a lot to say. The book came out, Appetite for the Dysfunction, in 2016, but you put out the audio version. Is that brand new? When did that become
Yeah, it
available?
came out in, I think, February, and I recorded it over the Christmas break, which was kind of interesting. I mean, I haven't actually listened to the whole thing yet. I went on to one of the platforms and listened to a few minutes of it. It's like I don't like to listen to myself read. It's weird, but maybe it's not weird. Like I had a conversation with Diane Keaton one time. She said she never saw any of her films. Like it kind of wigs her out, So I don't know. Maybe that isn't strange.
It isn't strange because I'm in radio and podcasting and I don't like the sound of my voice. In my head, I'm always like, I sound like the male Fran Drescher. Oh, Mr. Sheffield. And like, I guess I hear the Long Island Jew in my voice. But that's just me. I'm being hard on myself. So
But the actual experience of doing it was great. Like, I worked with this great guy and he every time I pronounced a word wrong, he's like, okay, let's go pick that up. And, it was like very patient with me,
was it like, was it a different, other than just the obvious of one's a book and when you're talking, writing versus audible? How is it emotionally then? Because I'm sure you went through a lot of experience when you first put your story together in book form, but now you're
Yeah.
saying these things out loud. Was it different in that respect?
Yeah, it brought up some of the triggers for me, especially the quotations from different people, but and I hadn't actually read my book in a few years. So, at the end of it, I went, wow, this is kind of a good ride.
That's how you know you made a
You
great
know,
book.
yeah. I mean, I had 3 people help me edit it, my friend Peter Margolis being the main one, and he was a musician in a band called Stainless Steel back then. And he does a lot of award shows now and things. And perhaps a little more opinionated than me, I like just try and tell the stories and let people decide for themselves, good or bad or indifferent. Peter definitely had his own take on things, so I had to go back and re-edit some of the stuff that he did. And then Catherine Truman helped edit it as well. She is a journalist, so she had sort of a different take on it. And then Denny Anderson, who typeset the book with the pictures and all that, did the final edit, so I'm an okay writer, but those people really sort of rose to the occasion and made it a great book, And now
Did
there's a lot of interest in it as a film and a TV series. I'm working with this writer, PJ Wolf, and we put together sort of a proof of concept Bible and a first episode. And, people are really enjoying it. So, we'll see. Maybe it'll. And also, I think the success of Daisy Jones and the Six is sort of brought back the maybe other music series can happen and do well. The
in
series
this
version is fictionalized, so it's not my exact story, but
Oh, I see.
could be
Because
fun.
I would imagine. So this is going to be different than the documentary series you were telling me that's coming out on
Yeah,
Paramount Plus.
the series that's coming out in mid-July is called I Wanna Rock, and it's coming out on Paramount Plus, and it was directed by Tyler Minson, who's done several documentaries, including I Want My MTV. I love him to death. He's amazing. And I feel like it's really my true story, as a manager. I've done hundreds of interviews and I've done a lot of like MTV, VH1 type things, but for some reason he like really told the story how I wanted it to be told, and it's edited really well, and there's like clips of the bands, and like, with Guns N' Roses there's like the Geffen contract and like the advance check and interviews with the band from that period of time, on video, and my interviews, and it all just comes together the right way. Like, to me, it makes it my piece of that history undeniable,
Mm. What
and
would,
it kind of did like a past, present, you know, what are they doing now? Like they're following like basically six people from the 80s into what they're doing now, and I'm one of them. Most of them are like rock stars, like it's Snake from Skid Row, and Janet from Vixen, and John Corabi, who was, he had the Scream, and then, was in Motley Crue for a
Mhm.
minute, and let's see, and me, and there's like D. Snyder's in it. That's
Of
why they
course.
called it I Want to Rock.
Oh, okay.
And um Ricky Rackman, and Catherine Truman, you
Oh,
know, Jonathan Daniels, it's like a lot of people that had success in the 80s and are still doing music now, in some capacity, or like Janet's like a dental hygienist, or I don't know, maybe she's a dentist. I don't know. But it starts out like with her like in the dentist office, and it's just a big light and it says, open up and say ah.
I love that. That's clever. See, that's great.
Yeah, I mean it's edited really well. It tells a really compelling story, and like real stories, it's not like this bullshit sort of thing,
Well, I guess with that, so what do you mean? Because that's been the benefit of having these streaming services where you could tell a story where it's not fit, just for a half an hour, just for an hour. You can expand and do whatever. It's because the MTV VH1 interviews, they've been edited down or watered down, like, or they twisted your words. What makes them
Well, no,
bullshit, I
it
guess.
really kind of depends who interviews you, I find. It's like if you like them, you're a little more open
Mm.
with it, and will tell them better stories. Like I've had it both ways. I've had like people that are good at interviewing people like yourself, like you care and you like love Guns N' Roses, and it comes across that you do, and then like I did this one interview about, I think it was just Bret Michaels, not Poison or whatever, but the guy was just like kind of angry and like really quick with me. And it's like, I was just like, oh my God, just get me off this as soon as possible.
I just can't
So,
imagine that, it's funny. My real radio job, I'm kind of on the opposite end, where instead of doing the interviews, I'm listening to people do interviews with celebrities, and it's my job to connect them. I'm like the old Lily Tomlin skit. Like if you look to my left right here, there's a whole board. I've a phone back here. I can connect people, radio stations to a guest. Actually, I was supposed to do one, but it was canceled with Steve Howe of Yes. That was supposed to happen
oh, you know
today.
who else is on it? It's Kip Winger. I knew I was forgetting somebody major.
Kip Winger. It's funny. Most of the names, like 80% of the names you mentioned, have been guests on this show. But
Oh, cool.
it's Kip is interesting because we had a great time, but then there's a certain excerpt of the interview that gets picked up, and it's not about their new album or whatever they're promoting, and then that person gets mad at me for asking the question, even though it's within the confines of the conversation, like you and I are having right now. I asked you before, anything you don't want to talk about, and I don't know. It's like I'm always afraid to ask certain questions because blabbermouth or ultimate. It's I don't want to say any name in specific. I guess I mean blabbermouth doesn't matter. They know, but just to avoid talking about certain things. And I know Guns N' Roses is a hot topic. So it's that's why I care, because it's not just I care about the material, I care about the guest and making them comfortable.
Okay,
Because
can I talk about Duff and Slash for a minute?
please, I mean, it's
So I went to see Iggy Pop at the Palladium, right?
mhm.
And Duff was in the Losers, which is the Iggy band that toured. And, I'm friends with Jamie Hintz, who also played guitar in the Losers. And it was so phenomenal. I just want to say, it was like Duff has always been sort of a punk rocker, but when he was up there with Iggy, it was like he was just like in his element so hard. Like, I saw Duff go to like a childlike place where he's like, oh my God, I'm playing with one of my idols. And I know that that's how Jamie felt, because he told me, he like was like in awe that he got to do that. And Slash came out and did, I Want to Be Your Dog with them. And, Iggy didn't announce him or anything. And all of a sudden the whole crowd just like sort of lit up with cameras. And I was one of them. I got it. But it was just incredible,
That was very cool, a moment, because I know they've done I Want to Be Your Dog recently in concert. I think now they're doing another Stooges cover, another Iggy cover. But so I guess let me ask, because I've had Matt Sorum on before, and he was saying, and it's no secret, Duff has talked about this. I mean, huge kudos to him for being so vocal recently about mental health. Last month was a mental health awareness month, and he put out some acoustic songs to help support the cause. But Matt Sorum said he thought, and you know what, Doug Goldstein, same thing. He said he thought Duff was going to die any day. So what is it like to you when you see him now, how well he's doing now? And you knew him way back when.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely liked his alcohol back in the day, but he's really fit and together.
My wife thinks he's hot.
Yeah.
She's like,
I
I'm
have
sorry,
a
honey.
girlfriend that like, doesn't care that he's married, and stuff.
I'm sure.
Get in there with him. I mean, I think his wife's name's Susan. She's lovely,
yeah, she's been on the podcast a couple of times, and she's
Yeah.
equally as hot. So they deserve each other.
So I don't think there's anything to worry about there. Duff doesn't strike me as the type that cheats, but
no, not at
he
all.
certainly could anytime he wanted to,
But no, he's like a role model compared to what the band used to be during your era. Just seemed like there was just all chaos, and now here's the thought. Like, I'm such a Guns N' Roses fan. Like with him, I'm like, did Slash go through this when he had his kids? Did he put on the top hat and change a diaper? But when you just think about all these years ago, Matt Sorum, speaking of, he gave me a baby swaddling advice. When I had him on, here's what you do.
That's cool.
And it was in the same episode with Rick Allen from Def Leppard. And he's like, if this was 20, 30 years ago, we would not be talking
The
about
one thing I remember about Slash and his kids was when he got his star on Hollywood Boulevard. They were both there, and they were still pretty little at that time, but they were just kind of in awe of like dad's getting the star on Hollywood Boulevard, and they were like so cute, Cash and London. And now, London has his own band, so he's, I don't know, both the boys are very cute. And then they remind me of Slash, like when I managed him, they have that sort of look about them,
That's cool. And I've been lucky enough to have London on a couple of times in his new band, Saint Electric. You answered that within like the stories you're telling now, because people are like, oh, does she still talk to anybody? They always ask that about if I had anybody, who's not in current Guns N' Roses. So I know you still talk to Slash, Duff. I believe there's still pretty good
Slash a text after that Iggy thing, and he said he really enjoyed himself, and that he had a good time, and I could just see it on Duff's face. I don't even need to ask him.
What about
I had stage passes afterwards, but Slash like took off, so I didn't like get to see him. But
okay. After all these years, you're not sick of going to concerts?
No, I mean, and I'm always happy to support people that I know and love,
Mhm.
It's like, Jamie's in the Kills, and it was like, he loves the Kills, but it was just like a different vibe to see him play with Iggy too, it's like you could tell that they were all going back to like when they were young and like listening to those records. And Iggy himself was like incredible. Like I saw Iggy like, I don't know, I think it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and he was still stage diving. I mean, it was like insane. And I was like backstage at that show, and I met Jack Black backstage, and he was like going off about how Iggy was like so incredible and stuff. It's just, Iggy's iconic. And
Yeah,
I just want to say that the stage passes had, a cock and balls on them. It was like drawn out, like, very punk rock. So it's like he doesn't ever lose that, punk rock edge, you
I love
know.
it. Oh, I love it. That's definitely a trip. And I know because you have pictures with Stephen Adler holding your book. You
Yeah.
still talk to him? Still friendly with him?
I haven't seen him in a while, but yeah, I love talking to Steven, he's played the Whiskey a few times, and both times I've like been out of town the last couple of gigs, but I work with this band called Outlaws and Moonshine, and the Whiskey told me the next time that he comes through that, they'll give them a support. So hopefully I'll see the next time he comes through.
Okay.
I saw that he's doing artwork, which is kind of interesting because I never knew him to do that. So
Hey,
yeah.
wouldn't be the first musician to do it. And I think anything that a way to express himself, I think is fantastic
Yeah.
artistically.
Yeah.
And you could plead the fifth, but I mean, it's kind of like having a sports show and a former manager. What would you do if you were in the band today? I mean, how do you feel? I guess by Steven not being involved, but he's playing. It's not like he's still
Well,
struggling to.
I kind of feel like, every time you take a band member out of the band, you lose a piece of the magic. I mean, like Matt Sorum's a great drummer, and he's just not, Steven's a very stylistic drummer, and I think he added something that Matt didn't add. Matt's more like a powerhouse drummer, and Steven's like a stylistic drummer. And I don't know. I miss Steven.
As somebody who, this reunion of sorts. I mean, this was my first time being able to see Axl and Slash on stage together. I mean, Duff, of course, but I never got to see the magic that you saw. And just knowing that
They'll never
people
be
are,
that. They'll never be that again. I mean, they're a lot older, first of all. I mean, Axel used to do that thing where, you know, he'd go down on his knees and back and forth on his knees and stuff. I mean, physically, I'm just sure he couldn't do that now.
well,
But
I understand that, but just to have like
yeah.
knowing that they're all alive, I guess,
Yeah,
for
that's pretty incredible in itself, isn't it?
it, it really is. It really
Of
is. I
course,
was thinking,
I would have bet against Keith Richards being as old as he is now, but you
right?
know, I
See,
guess those blood transfusions are working.
and that lends itself to another question. Where's Izzy? I mean, nobody knows. I mean, we talked about the other members. This is from Rafael Tavares. Any idea where Izzy is?
Yeah, I think he's in Ojai is where I think he is, but
Okay.
I don't have any proof of that, but that's what I've heard.
And there have been rumors that he's going to put out a Juju Hounds or new record because there was a studio that
He
posted that,
should, I
right?
mean, okay, I'm probably going to get some shit for this, but in my mind, Izzy's the best writer of the band. So
When I've had Alan Niven on, he said the same thing.
yeah.
He calls Izzy the soul of the heart of something like that. One of the Alanisms that he comes up with. But he's a huge Izzy guy. But that actually lends me to make a transition here. I don't know if you were aware, I was working on a book, Doug Goldstein's book. And, I want to be diplomatic about it because I think he's a nice guy. He was on the show a lot. I guess to summarize a little bit, he kind of bailed when there was like from the publisher, when there was pushback that I was not an author, even though just like you, I wanted editors, anyone who wants to help. But Doug came to me to write this book. But he kind of just got scared off. But I think enough time has passed for me to read an excerpt that he wrote about you, and this is all nice. So this is nothing. It's not gonna hurt. It's not gonna hurt anybody.
Okay, let's hear it.
Where is it, Vicky?
I mean, I didn't really know him very well, so it'll be interesting.
Oh, so and this is like harmless, so I don't even mind reading
Okay.
on this. The never to be published Doug Goldstein autobiography. Alan wasn't Guns N' Roses' first manager. I get a real problem with poor Vicky Hamilton getting fucked the way that she did. Tom Zutaut from Geffen said, "Look, you have to get a different manager than Vicky, or I'm not signing." He thought that she didn't have any experience, that she was LA based only and couldn't take it to the next level. And so they interviewed everybody. That sounds accurate. What Doug was said.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So he gives you credit, which you deserve. And everyone says that. Everyone who knows your story knows you deserve all the credit in the world.
and you probably know that Tom is selling cars in Georgia now.
I do.
So I own my own record company. I'm doing my own management company. I've kind of stayed in the game, I don't know why Tom 35 years, 40 years later, still has a bone for me. It's like he's the one that got all the credit from it at Geffen. So why? I don't know. It just seems weird.
Well, that's why I like.
mean, there are things I can say, but I just don't want to say it because I just don't want to get into it. But
Oh, I understood. And it was more mainly
Yeah.
being like, here's somebody, Doug, who's in the trenches and knows it. I mean, this is somebody post who could have been like, oh yeah, I took it to all these heights, Guns N' Roses. They were all me, me, me. No, he took time, albeit and not enough. It was only a paragraph to be like, Vicky got screwed over. She got fucked over.
Well, if you speak to him, tell him I appreciate that and nice of him to say it.
I certainly will.
But it's like, the bargaining chip was that I would get an A&R job at Geffen, and I got the street scouting gig there. I wasn't really fired from Guns N' Roses. I kind of helped made my own choice that I wanted to do A&R. But okay, if they want to look at it like that.
Before we turn to the your management company, Dark Spark, this is just the last question about not a member, but a member of the GN'R family, and a chance for me to bring it up on the podcast. But Robert John.
Oh, I was going to bring that up actually.
Please do. Do you know how he's doing? He had a
He
stroke.
started therapy, and I hear that it's going well. I'm gonna try and go see him, but he lives like down by San Diego now, so it's a little bit of a hike for me. But yeah, I mean, there is a GoFundMe to help him financially, which I shared on my Facebook page, and I think it's under GoFundMe Robert's heart attack, I want to say.
Heart attack. Okay.
It would be great if the Guns N' Roses fans would get behind that, because I can guarantee that 50% of at least of the photos of Guns N' Roses that you all love are photos that Robert took. I mean, he's such an incredible photographer, great guy, and I don't know, it really hurts my heart that happened to him, but I'm hoping that he's going to make a full recovery and get back out there and shoot some photos. I mean, he shot the photograph of me on the back of my book. I mean, I love Robert as a photographer, and I've shot with him several times myself, and he did all of the great Motorhead shots. He and Lemmy were very tight, and I don't know. He just had his own, and still does. So let's not talk about him in past tense. He has his own style of photographing. I mean, it's very dark. Like he usually shoots on a black background or whatever, but
Hmm.
I just think that, his photographs are art. And if you can like help him, $5, $10 would make a big difference, for he and his wife and, the kids, and because it's going to be a long road back.
And
So
I need to thank you not just for sharing that, but for sharing that link. And since we're friends on Facebook, I saw that and shared it, and then it kind of spread a lot. The GoFundMe, yes, Robert's heart attack, and so far they have 6,105 of their $10,000 goal. I think we can get higher, but I had a lot of listeners who donated, or at least just sharing the word. I know times are tough out there, but just keep spreading the word. It is up on my Twitter and Facebook if you can't find Vicky's. But yeah, just go to GoFundMe, Robert's heart attack, organized by Christian Perez. So yeah, I definitely want to take a few moments to talk about him. So thanks for sharing.
yeah.
Not the easiest transition, but what is the latest with you as far as your management company, Dark Spark, and what you have going on, what bands that you're currently working with?
Well, this Friday, I have a new record coming out with a new rock band called Mother Wind from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, who I just think are phenomenal. It's like I went to Wisconsin like a month ago, and it's like their shows, it's like they're all so entertaining. It's hard to pick which one to like look at. Like the drummer is like super entertaining. It's like if you can't see him behind the singer, you're like, okay, I feel like I'm missing out when I can't see him. And the singer, not only is he gorgeous and like super talented, it's like this man has like chords like nobody's business. But this song's called Ka-Ching. It's about money, and it's pretty clever and fun. They're getting ready to record again next week. So that's Mother Wind. And let's see who else. Sun from Paris, France, who is female fronted, and they call their music brutal pop, and it starts out kind of poppy, but then she goes into like this like crazy ass screamo. It's hard to believe that sound comes out of such a sweet girl.
Is it Sun as in my son Harrison, or the sun in the sky?
Sun in the Sky. And
Okay.
it's like, if you're looking at it on Spotify, it's Sun in capital records, and then capital letters, and then brutal pop in parentheses afterwards, because there's like a gazillion Suns, as you could imagine. But that's how you can find them, is Sun brutal pop. The most current single is John and I, and it's a song about money too. Funny that I'm like releasing all these songs about money, but I guess it's on my mind.
I can always.
It's on my band's minds for sure. So
Is there a common trend you can, or a theme or a commonality that you see within rock bands now? Because obviously we were talking about this documentary that's coming out on Paramount Plus in July, where it's about 80s Sunset Strip. You can draw, linear and find commonalities between bands then, whether it's the spandex or whatever, musically, anything you see now, because we're getting brutal pop. We're getting so many different subgenres than there were
right.
before. Is there anything that you see in the rock and roll, in the youth of rock and roll that's coming out, that's still coming up?
Gosh, I think I would classify it as alternative rock instead of like, rock or
Mhm.
cock rock. There's a great band that I just saw last week called The Cocks, and they have a gay lead singer. And, I stood in line like 10 minutes to buy a t-shirt. And after the show, I said to him, you need to make a shirt that says giving new meaning to cock rock, because like Butch Walker and all those guys from the hair bands in the 80s used to call what they did cock rock. But
Sure.
You know, I would call it alternative rock. It
Okay.
doesn't seem to be like the rock that I did in the 80s, although there are a few of those too, like that band was, what are they called? Gunshine or something. They're going out with um Steel Panther, I think, or
Okay. Who's
yeah.
on America's Got Talent?
Yeah, right. I mean,
What a trip that is.
yeah.
What do you think about them? Because they're playing the music that was then, but they're giving a new spin on it. Do you like what they do, their gimmick?
I I have to say I haven't heard their new material. Like, somebody was saying to me yesterday that their new songs are really quite good. And I said, oh, I need to like check it out. I haven't seen them in a few years. I used to go a lot when they were called what was it, metal something. Um well, Ralph's been around forever, he did the Van Halen cover band, and then
That's right.
Metal School, I think is what
Oh,
they were
okay.
called, Ultim in the beginning. And then, it became Steel Panther. And then it seemed like they were sort of like ripping on all the bands that I worked. So I didn't find it as funny as most people because, I
Right.
don't know, I felt like they were like sort of ripping bands' creativity. And sometimes they can get like kind of mean towards groupies and things like that. And I don't like that in rock music. I don't like it in rap music, that pimps and hoes thing. It's like, you've got to respect women, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for women, okay?
That is very true. It's very true.
It's like, don't give women a bad rap. Um, but there's certainly a place for Steel Panther, and comedy is majorly needed these days after 3 years of pandemic and
Yeah.
everything that's happened. So, I'm for it.
I know we've talked about this, the previous interviews, but I mean, they're so long ago. With him, this little guy, I don't remember an hour ago. Uh, but just to reflect on that time, the 80s, and you're championing that time, which for me, I'm going to be 40 in September. I didn't get to live that, obviously, East Coast anyway. But that time, that era wasn't very kind to women.
No.
And you you were in it. You were really in it. You had mentioned that was, if not the main reason why you felt that you weren't taken by Tom along with Guns N' Roses. Not that you didn't have the LA experience, was just LA experience, that you were a woman. That was one of the reasons. Have you seen things change now? Is things different? Are you
Well,
still fighting? How do you feel about where
yeah, I
women
mean,
are?
I'd like to think that I've helped sort of knock down the glass ceiling or kicked it down a bit. It's like there are more female managers for sure, and a lot of IT people and marketing people that do music. And I try and champion female artists too. It's like I have Sun right now, and I'm getting ready to put out a track with Astrid Young, who's Neil Young's sister. It's like women, or what's that line? Women hold up half the sky. It's like, I think women, and quite frankly, I think women make better managers than men because they are so nurturing and detail oriented. I would say that women and gays make the best managers. That's what.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't do it. Another question I got for you, Danny Bigelow. Any bands from the 80s that you feel should have gone to the next level, but for whatever reason they didn't, that
Oh
perhaps
God,
listeners
that's a
could get?
lot.
Yeah. So if you can think of maybe just a few, one or two that are still maybe around that we can go back and we can listen to and being like, whoa, how did they miss?
Jet Boy for sure should have
Okay.
been huge. Let's see. Uh, well, I did a band called I Napoleon that I thought made an incredible record. Randy O, either in Odin or Lost Boys, should have had more success than he did, and I like managed him as well for a while. Who else? I did a band from New York called Valerie Angel. Did you ever hear of her? I mean, you're maybe
No.
too young, but she had a incredible voice and like a blues rock sort of vibe about her that was really great. And yeah, I don't know what happened to her, but she was great. Halfway Home, another band that I like worked with, should have done well.
Hmm.
Oh, Lions and Ghosts, amazing. Rick Parker was the front man of that band, and Michael Lockwood was the guitar player. They had a record on EMI, 2 records on EMI, and then I did a solo record with Rick Parker. Now he's like a major record producer, and he's worked with a band called Lovely World that I work with. Who else? There were many, it's hard to say.
Well, you gave a good list there, and
Shark Island, how about,
okay.
Axel took a lot of things from Richard Black. I mean, his stage moves and things, but they were big in the 80s,
Okay. See, this is why I love talking to you, and I'm looking forward to the documentary. It's just because there's so much still to be found out about that time, and too much of the hair metal and just painting with a broad brush, and people get like, I guess it's the whole decline of Western civilization part 2 thing. There's talent there, but there in some bands, others there were not. But there's just so much to learn and to find out about. And actually, because Danny has a really interesting follow-up question that I never thought about. Speaking of the Sunset Strip, do you have any memory of musicians kicking around the strip that in the 80s that went on to bigger things in the 90s? He gives examples like Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, Tori Amos, and Jeff Buckley. Any memories of people like that weren't necessarily 80s artists, but were hanging out in the Sunset Strip that eventually made it big?
I'm sure there were, Perry Farrell for sure,
Okay.
Jane's Addiction. Perry Farrell, when Jane's Addiction first started, was sharing a house with Lions and Ghosts that they rehearsed in, and Lions and Ghosts wrote a song called The Wiltern House about that house. It was a great song. I loved it. Well, the dad of one of the kids from BRMC was like in that sort of like 80s scene, and he brought the kids down from San Francisco, and like they came to my June Carter Cash show at the Troubadour, and we're like backstage, and they were talking about how all that music had like influenced them, and so I'm sure it had something to do with their success,
Okay. And I gotta see, Danny, you're lucky. You're getting your 3rd question in just because you mentioned June Carter Cash, that you were friends with her. So he wants to know, when you saw Johnny Cash's Hurt video for the first time, what was your reaction? And perhaps was it hard to watch?
It's still hard for me to watch because she died soon after that, and June was like a mother to me. It's like I made that record with her that won a Grammy. Was the first and only record on my first record label called Small Hairy Dog. And it doesn't seem like they're gone to me, June and John. It's like I feel like they like give me messages from the beyond and stuff. I know that sounds crazy, but I'll be like in the grocery store and I'll hear like a music version of, Johnny Cash or whatever. And I'm still friends with John Carter Cash. So, I get to go to the Cash Cabin and hang out. Like I've done some recording there recently with a country artist, and, their spirits still live and walk those grounds as far as I'm concerned, And John Carter's turned in like a phenomenal producer and like, Nashville royalty as far as producing goes, I think. It's weird. It's like Nashville sort of has a mini LA vibe these days. It's like all the like 80s rockers, like, well, not all, but a lot of them moved to Nashville so that they can still do power ballads. And I like Nashville. I don't think I would ever move there, but I do like Nashville.
I want to visit. I mean, I guess here so many wonderful things about just, I'm not a country guy, but I love the vibe and just the friendliness of that, of musicians that seem to come from there. It just seems like it would just be a lot of fun. So maybe when he gets old enough, I'll bring him down there.
Yeah, it's like I love the basement, the downtown basement, grimy Mike Grimes that sort of made that place come up. He's an amazing person, and they do a thing called what is it, New Face Night, I think. Yeah, New Face Night. And they do like 5 new acts, and it's free, and that's like always a good time. There's a lot of new clubs like Bowie's that's like cool there too. A lot going on there. There's like the best karaoke bar ever there, which is like 2 double wide trailers and like a T sort of scenario called Santa's, and it's like done up like Christmas 24/7, and the guy that runs it's name is Santa, and he looks like Santa Claus. And all these phenomenal singers, because singers all moved to Nashville, and they do those like players in the round and all that stuff. And when they sing karaoke, it's amazing. So it's always like a great time, and they serve like generic beers and whatever. Every time I go to Nashville, so I go to Santa's. I love it there.
Okay. That's the kind of karaoke I like. I used to be all about it, but now I'm like, why am I listening to other people who are terrible at singing? And I am terrible.
Right.
If there's a talent there, then yeah, that's a great time.
I mean, I think if you sat there a few nights a week, you would find like the next Patsy Cline or somebody, because they're like all singing crazy and all those country songs. It's or even like there's like a lot of different kind of country now too. There's like that new country, and then there's the old country, and then there's like the pop country. It's like
there's
rock, a lot going on there.
All the subgenres and things.
Yeah, totally.
It's awesome that you're keeping up with the Joneses.
I mean, I love outlaw country. It's like, if there was a Johnny Cash to be had, I'd be the first one to sign up for it.
As somebody who, I'm not a country person, that's the country though I do like, the Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
Hank Williams III.
Yeah.
As I think I heard it, my friend called it cowpunk. I don't know if
like Blackberry Smoke is amazing. Yeah. There's like, Shooter Jennings is quite good as well. There's like a lot of upcoming country people that are like great. And Guns N' Roses taking Carrie Underwood on tour, so what about that?
Right. So let me ask, because I don't want to keep you here forever. I mean, because I know you still hang out with you speak to Slash and Duff. You've seen current Guns N' Roses. Is there a relationship at all with Axl anymore?
With me? No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I haven't talked to him since like early 90s, probably.
So if you can plead the fifth, past what happened there. I know you address it in your book, but because this question just came up, so it's almost like live radio on my Facebook from Rafael Salinas, which Axl mentioned, like the lawsuit. Like, is something you could talk about when you sued Guns N' Roses and Axl?
Well, I sued them because I borrowed $25,000 from Howie Huberman to like buy gear and clothes and things for them, and it was coming up on the limit of statutation, and I didn't want to like be holding the bag for that 25 grand. It was like, so I settled with the band, and they paid half of it, and I think Geffen paid the other half, but you know, it was a ballsy move, but you know, it's like, and I was working at Geffen at the time, so, but you know, it's like I didn't want to hold the bag for that cash, you know?
I get it. So is that what caused the friction with Axel? I mean, because it seems like he's from
No,
the umpires.
I
Okay.
can't like, you know, I think I have an idea of what really happened. I don't even completely know, you know? I mean, you know, there was a time when we went to dinner at the Rainbow and, you know, I said, let me like try and, you know, find a management partner and maybe, you know, I can stay with the band. And, you know, we met with Doc McGee and Doug Thaler, and a couple of them were like nodding off at the conference table. And, you know, Doug walked me outside afterwards and said, you know, Vicky, we love you. We love this band, but we have Motley Crue here. We don't want another one of these, you know? So, you know, that happened. And then, you know, Tom was like, you know, he wanted them to have a male manager. You know, they didn't have a manager for like a year after that deal went down. It's like, you know, Alan Niven didn't come into the picture until the record was done, you know, so it's like they were lawless for a long time, Guns N' Roses. You know, and it's like I signed Faster Pussycat after Guns N' Roses, and their record came out first, you know, it's like it was a long, long time. So and there was like a scenario, you know, that Axel, you know, didn't like something I said about one of his family members, and I think that probably played a part in it, but I don't exactly know exactly what happened, you know.
Because from a fan perspective, it just looks like he's a different person. He's not the angry Axel that became famous. He seems like just like calmer, subdued, more mature. And you just hope, just going back earlier in the conversation, whether it's not doesn't have
Hey,
to be
well, if he called me, I would pick up the phone, and you know,
okay.
Slash has said that he's a different person too, you know, so I
Okay.
mean, I tend to believe that he has probably grown up, but I haven't spoken to him since the
Okay.
early 90s, so I don't have any real sense of what's going on there, you know.
I gotcha. I gotcha. No, I appreciate you sharing that. It's the question that just came in, and you know what? Like I had never asked you about that. As I mentioned before, I tried to avoid problem areas. This is just a fun conversation. I'm not trying to dig up dirt. I leave
Okay,
that
what
to
do you
your
got?
book.
Give me your best shot here.
No, I mean that's pretty much it. Everyone wants to know
Okay,
about Axl Rose. I mean that's always the
all
thing.
right,
It's
yeah.
so
What
it's
do they want to know?
no, that's what it was about. It was
Oh,
the
okay.
lawsuit. That's all it was.
Oh, okay,
And
yeah.
if whether you still spoke, and my brain also went there because speaking of old country, now they cover Wichita linemen from Glenn Campbell, and it's just like, you know, again, it's the subdued Axel who's just I don't
I would
know,
love
just
to
seems
talk to
more
him, you know. I
approachable.
would like welcome a phone call from him, you know. It's like, you know, I'm 65 now. It's like I don't hold any animosity towards him, you know. It's like we were kids, you know, and
Right.
it's like, you know, it took me a long time to get past that and a lot of therapy and stuff. And I was afraid of him for a while. Like, you know, he left a message on my answering machine, like he was mad about something I said in some article. And, you know, he says, I always get what I want. And, you know, I want your head or whatever it was, you know. It's like, okay, you know, you know, I didn't sign any like non-disclosure agreement about my relationship with them, and you know, nor do I ever with any of my bands. It's like my stories are my stories, and
Right.
you know, if you don't want to like read about them, then don't do it, you know what I mean?
No, I do. And that's
So it's like, you know,
yeah.
treat people the way you want to be treated, you know? And I'm sure that Axel is not the same angry young man that I dealt with, you know? But, you know, at times he was very lovely, you know? He had like a very fun personality, you know, at times, you know, it wasn't always the angry bipolar crap. It was, you know, let's go have dinner. I'll buy you a tattoo. Thanks for helping us. You know, it's like I never got a tattoo. I'm pretty proud of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, me neither. I'm actually planning
Yeah,
what
right.
I'm planning what I'm gonna get for him. His middle name is Rex, so I'll probably get a T-Rex somewhere on me
Aw,
for him. And he fell asleep. He had a, he was, what's funny. Oh, I woke him up. It's Welcome to the
aw.
Jungle. You could put a picture of his screaming face next to Axel's face and Welcome to the Jungle when he's strapped down, and it's the same picture. So
Yeah, well, that comes from Faces of Death, I think, but
Vicky, last thing, what are you most excited about people to discover about you? And it's vickyhamilton.com, right? Do you want people to
yeah.
what's the
Buy my
the
book,
documentary,
you
right?
know, buy my audio book. Tell me what you think of it. You know, there's a new chapter in it that is not in my book.
I was gonna ask you about that too. Like,
Yeah.
you must have wanted to add things and change things. No.
You know, it's like I could write a whole nother book now, you know, it's like, you know, running this record company, Dark Spark Music, through the Orchard. It's like, it's such a different day in the music business with all this streaming and playlisting and, you know, how they go about marketing things. And, you know, it was a real learning curve for me because it's a whole different world, you know.
You're going with it though. I admire it. I
Yeah.
mean, I hope I'm in my career as long as you've been doing it and still doing well and producing and still in demand. I think it's so
Yeah,
cool
it's like
what
I
you're
look
working on.
forward to like making a TV series or a movie and stuff, you know, it's like I'm always wanting to learn new things, you know. It's like, you know, rock music is always going to be my number one love probably, but I try other things. Like I've got a guy named Sergio that I'm doing right now that's like a dance artist, and you know, he's going to put a studio in my garage, and you know, we're going to make dance records. I think since the pandemic, you know, I think people want to dance and touch and, you know, have sex, all of that stuff. It's like, you know, I see a whole Studio 54 era coming, you know.
Okay.
And I want to like be a part of that, you know. It's
Okay.
like I like trying all kinds of records, you know. It's like I'm not just rock girl, you know. I will do whatever I find interesting, you know.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to whatever your next chapter, no pun intended, is going to be. So vickyhamilton.com, Appetite for Dysfunction, the name of the book and the audio
Yeah.
book. Because even though
You can
it's
buy it on Spotify. I mean, I saw it was on Spotify. I was like kind of horrified by that. It is.
it's like for me, I don't have time to read books, but if I'm in a washing
A lot of
dishes in the
people love
car, audio.
audiobooks, you know. It's like I personally want to hold a book and look at pictures and whatever. And, you know,
I
if you
wish
buy
I had the
my book from
patience.
my website, I will
Mhm.
sign a book off to you and send it. And, you know,
Oh, I love
but
it.
the audiobooks out there. I don't love my Kindle because the guy that laid out my Kindle, like every time there was a picture, it turned into like some kind of weird typo. So I'm embarrassed by that. But, you
Well,
know, I have a Kindle too.
that's something, I'm so OCD. That's something that would bother me too. But in the grand
Yeah.
scheme of things, it should only be that. And I don't want to forget the byline of a cautionary tale. But I mean,
Yes.
you're still kicking ass. So I mean, it's cautionary, but it's also maybe a how-to book as well. Or
How
no, or what the
to
hell,
and
what not
what
to
not
do.
to do.
I guess that makes more sense. I love it.
Don't let Guns N' Roses come to live with you, okay? That's what I can say.
Oh, yeah, then I'll end right there. This was from John Bon Casey, DJ Hipsters on Twitter. That poor woman in her flat. I was like,
Yeah.
flat. That's the English term, right? Or
Yeah.
with the crying emoji laughing. Oh, I love it. So Vicky, thank you. I hope to have you on again when your movie comes out after the documentary. Maybe we'll break it down. But thank you for
Yeah,
staying
check
longer.
out I Want to Rock. It's going to be great. It's a 3-part series, so it's like 3 hours long, and it will be streaming on Paramount Plus, hopefully mid-July. It's been coming out since January, so whenever they tell me a new release date, I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. But I've seen
Soon is
2
the
of
word.
the episodes are done, so they're only working on the last one now, so it is coming shortly.
Okay. Soon is the word, which you'll see in a
Yeah.
second, is how I end my episodes. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. If you want to get in questions, just like I was asking Vicky questions, some couple guests I can tell you guys about. Steve Turner, a mud honey, is coming to the podcast, as
Cool.
well as Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath will be on the
Nice.
podcast as well. So that's going to be fun. So that does it for this episode. When will you see the next one? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.